how to become a private money lender in 2 steps. Today, I'm going to walk you through the steps to becoming a private money lender. We will cover the laws and regulations. We will talk about creating an underwriting criteria. I'm going to help you build your team, and I will direct you to the right training. We will also discuss how to understand your investors, how to set your terms, and how to fund your first deal. But before we get into that, I know, y'all know, that I was not going to allow Elridge to have all the fun, right? Elridge is like a hare, and I'm like the turtle. I move a little slow out the gate. Elridge is really fast at everything that he does, right? And so this brings me to the fable, the tortoise and the hare. So let's take a look at that fable for those of you who don't know. The tortoise and the hare illustrates the value of perseverance over arrogance. Now, I'm not saying Elridge is arrogant because he's certainly not. In the story, the boastful hare, I don't think Elridge is boastful either. Maybe not. Nah, he's not. He's not boastful. But in the story, the boastful hare is confident in his speed. He challenges the slow-moving turtle to a race. While the hare quickly leaves the tortoise behind, he becomes complacent and takes a nap. Meanwhile, the tortoise continues steadily and ultimately crosses the finish line first. The moral story emphasizes that slow and steady wins the race, highlighting that overconfidence can lead to failure, while determination can lead to success. So I got a plot twist for you. My friendship with Elridge basically is friendship and teamwork triumphs over individual talent. And so that's the plot twist. Private money lending is about teamwork over individual talent. You got to get this. As we dive into the video, we're going to discuss building out your team. In order to be successful in private money lending, it's important to build relationships with your borrowers and team. In addition to capital, it is really the lifeline of your business. So let's dive right into it, guys. We're going to begin with step one to become a private lender is basically we're going to be building a foundation here, right? This is the basis of the structure and the support to your business. And without this, we really don't have anything. But once we set the foundation and we set the structure, guess what happens? Just like building anything, just like building a house, you never have to do it again. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about knowing the laws and knowing the regulations. This is important. You have to know the laws and the regulations as to where you lend, not live. You have to know the laws and regulations to where you lend, not live. So you need to know if the state requires you to be licensed, right? And so what I mean by that is there's this confusion regarding whether or not you need to be licensed as a private money lender. And so what people are confusing that with is consumer law versus business and commercial law. Most private lenders that I know across in any state do commercial or business purpose loans. And so generally when you do a commercial or business purpose loan, that state generally does not require you to be licensed as a broker. If you're going to be brokering loans, generally on the consumer side, then yes, that may be a law or a requirement for you to get a license. But in most states, in most cases, if you're extending consumer and business loans, which you should, then licensing is typically not required, right? That brings me to the second law, right, or the second regulation. You have to know and understand usury laws. Usury laws are laws to protect consumers for ridiculously high interest rates, right? And so there's going to be some limits and some maximums that are going to be set. And so depending on which state you are lending in, you need to know and be familiar with those maximum and minimum interest rates are that you can charge. So knowing if you need a license in the state in which you lend, and also understanding usury laws, or just some of the laws that are necessary for you to understand. So creating your underwriting criteria. What is your risk tolerance? These are questions you need to ask yourself. What's your risk tolerance? Are you going to check for credit scores? Are you checking for background? Are you lending at 65% LTV? These are the things that I would ask myself if you're going to get started in, right? And so 65% LTV, I would suggest that you do that, because now you are creating what we call a protective equity spread. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. That protective equity spread is 35%. So it begs into question, okay, so what if the borrower does not pay me? Well, what if this loan has to go on default? Well, if you're lending at 65% LTV, you should have enough spread to at least recover your principal amount and possibly gain extra few dollars in interest on that spread. Are you going to require a down payment? I suggest you do. We require a 20 up to, well, it could be low, it could be more than that. We'll require a minimum of 20% down payment. And this is because, again, we don't want to position ourselves to have our loans in the safest position possible, right? And so we don't check credit score at Vertical Capital, but you may consider checking a credit score as a part of your criteria. You know, you may consider checking backgrounds as a part of your criteria. You have to determine what that minimum credit score that you're gonna do, right? Are you gonna lend on commercial, single family, multifamily, land, mobile home parks? What are you gonna lend on? What's your lending criteria? At Vertical Capital, we lend on single family houses, 1 to 4 units. We don't lend outside of that. That's where we consider ourselves to be experts. And so we want to stay in this space. And eventually we're going to evolve into small commercial, pretty much in the next few months or so, right? So you got to determine if that's what you're going to do. Are you going to lend on multifamily? You're going to lend on land? I wouldn't suggest necessarily lending on land at this particular point in our economy. But if you do lend on land, that LTV needs to be lowered, right? And you should not be lending on land at 65%. You might want to consider 40% LTV. I know it sounds ridiculous, but again, as a private money lender, a hard money lender, you have to position yourself to be in the safest position possible, right? So we talked about underwriting. How, are you going to do what property types are you going to use? Are you going to do credit checks, background checks? Are you going to require? Are you lending in first lien position? Or are you going to lend in second lien position? And if so, what does that look like? Does the combined LTV have to be 65% in order for you to extend that second lien or junior lien? I would suggest that you do that, meaning between your first loan, between the first loan and you coming in at the second loan, when you add them up, they have to equal 65% of LTV, right? And so if you're going to do that in second lien position, that might be something you would consider. What are some other underwriting criteria? We talk about property types. We talk about borrower, meaning, are we going to lend to businesses and not individuals? So one thing about establishing yourself as not extended consumer loans. A lot of people like to lend, or private money lenders like to lend to business entities instead of the individual. There's a whole bunch of other things you consider, like as far as your underwriting in order for you to approve that process. Is there going to be a maximum that you're going to lend? Is there going to be a minimum that you're going to lend? You have to answer all those questions as you create your underwriting. And as you create your underwriting, this is where you're going to start to develop their documents, such as your promissory note and your mortgages, right? So moving on to the third point here is build your team. Okay, so building your team, you can do one of two things. As a private money lender, Elridge and I, we originate our own notes, right? We create all our documents, we originate our notes, and we also create our promissory notes. And you may just say, okay, listen, I just want to strictly just be the money person, where you're funding these deals, but you do have a criteria. Like we said, they built that criteria in the last stage, right? And so you may use a broker. You may use a broker who is licensed, right? Who may broker out your money to other individuals. And so this is a part of your team. He or she's a part of your team. He's there to help you grow your business. He's there to basically make sure that the borrower is qualified for your loan. So they're pretty much going to do all the heavy lifting for you. And then when the loan is ready to be funded, then you can fund that deal based off the criteria that you provided to the broker. Another key component to your team is your accountant and your bookkeeper, right? Another could be your accountant, your bookkeeper, a real estate agent, an appraiser is someone who's a part of your team. And maybe if you're going to service your loans. Now, servicing your loan, that's like if you have construction draws, and let's say, by the way, don't ever give 100% of your cash to an investor. Don't ever do that, because now you're putting your money at risk, right? They can abandon a job, they can have mismanagement of funds, and then you have a property that's collateralized. You have a collateral where that property is not worth the money that you provided, right? So let's say you shelled out $100,000 and no work is done to the property the day that you shelled it out. That property is only worth its as-is value. Let's say the as-is value is $50,000. So you shelled out $100,000 on day one on a property that's worth $50,000. If you have to foreclose or take that property back, where are you getting the rest of the where are you getting the other $50,000? It's only worth $50,000, but you got $100,000 cash out. So you got to think about those type of things when you decide to be in the private money lending. But getting back to building your team, we talked about the appraiser. We talked about maybe servicing your own loans, right? So we service our loans in-house. And so that what that means is on a draw, like, so say for instance, you say, okay, look, this construction process is going to be $100,000, right? And so the borrower says, hey, listen, I completed, or I put $20,000 of my money into the project first to start the construction, and that $20,000 is complete. You do the draws and you're servicing your loan on a reimbursement. So this is construction draw servicing. Another thing may be part of the servicing is the disbursement and the collection of payments, interest payments, right? Who's going to collect those payments? Who's going to disperse those payments if there are other lenders involved, or what we call co-lendings involved in that? So those are some things you need to consider when building your team. The team members consist of your accountant, your bookkeeper, maybe a mortgage broker in some cases. If you want to just learn the process and kind of get your feet wet, well, maybe using a mortgage broker may be in your best interest. Appraisers, real estate agents are all a part of the team, right? And your ability to network, we'll talk about that and later on. And get the right training, right? So getting the right training will help you to move the needle forward without making the costly mistakes. So when we first got started, Elridge and I kind of made a few costly mistakes. Not that many. I can't, I'm not going to sit up here and tell no tale. There weren't a lot. There weren't even really costly, but there was a cost to it. It wasn't heavy. But that was because we've had 20 years of real estate investing. So we've used private money lending. We also have used traditional lending. We've used our own cash. We used a number of resources throughout the years that helped us to develop a pretty tight process with lending the money, right? And so if you are interested in private money lending training, check out our 45-minute webinar. I believe it's in the description box above, right? So getting to step 2. Again, step 1, this is the foundation. Once you set this foundation, you're done, right? In addition to getting your loan documents, you need to get a title attorney. Sorry about that. When you build your team, you need a title attorney, someone who specializes in real estate to help you develop your documents, someone who also understands the closing process to private money lending. Listen, not all closing title attorneys understand this process. Not all title attorneys understand private money lending. You have to find a title attorney who is what we like to call a real estate investor friendly, right? And there are going to be a few of them out there in your community. And if you don't know who they are, you definitely need to go to your local real estate meetups. They are there. Real estate investors are there. They're the ones out there using those folks. So these people are not that hard to find, even if you've never done anything in real estate before. All you have to do is go to your local real estate meetup, and I'm sure you'll be able to find at least one, right? So step 2 to how to become a private money lender is we need borrowers. And so there's no way that this works without the borrower, right? Elridge and I have a metric that we track. It's called dead money, right? And so if the money is sitting and not being loaned out to a borrower, it's dead. It's not making us any money. My business is dead, right? And so we need borrowers. And so developing relationships with those borrowers, there's fix and flippers, there's people out there who need your service, right? Who do not fit the traditional banking model, who are building a real estate empire, and they need your service. They need you, just like we need them. And so where do we find these borrowers? So again, once we do step 1 and we set our foundation, step 2 is now we got to go, how do we get our money out, right? How do we get it deployed, working in our local cities or working in our local parishes and counties? Simply go to the meetup. Go to the local real estate association and stand on a chair and tell everybody you got money. Not lying, you don't do like that. But you do announce that, hey, you have money to lend, and then you're going to take your underwriting criteria and you're going to say, hey, I lend on 1 to 4 single-family units. I go up to 65% LTV. I have at least a 20% down payment. I can fund your deal within 7 business days, 10 business days after the title is clear. We do a reimbursement. We do 100% of the construction or rehab costs, this is what you're going to tell people when you go to the real estate meetup and the meetup association, right? So this is where you're going to find your first borrowers, right? And be patient. And be patient. If you have a social media presence, you might want to blast that out on your social media platforms. But the best way to start is to go to the real estate meetup or with associations. If there's more than one, you need to be at every one of these. In the very beginning, Elridge and I were rolling all over Southeast Louisiana, going to every real estate meetup, every real estate association, every real estate event. You need to be there. And you need to be there with your business cards. You need to be there with some type of advertisement. Check out the shirt, saying, hey, you're here, you're in the community, and you have the money to lend, and you have it ready to lend now. So that's how you're going to find find borrowers, right? And the second thing is how do you find OPM? So OPM is other people's money. A really good, you can use your own cash. Don't get me wrong, you can use your own cash here, especially when you're starting off. You can definitely do that. We did, right? We did. But eventually, in order to keep this beast moving, because once you do one loan, guys, and you do loan number 2 and loan number 3, it becomes a snowball effect, right? And then it gets to a point to where, man, you got all these borrowers that are asking, their applicants coming in, and you don't have enough cash. So there's kind of like this seesaw battle going on, right? And so how do you balance the seesaw battle? You got to get out there and raise more capital. And so I would suggest that, hey, maybe you can get one of these loans under your belt, right, with maybe your cash. You might have some money sitting in a retirement account. You might have $100K sitting in a retirement account. You may have $50K. You may have a coworker who has another $50K, and you guys could get together and lend that $100K out to a borrower, right, as your first loan. Right? And so when you do that, now you have a track. You have some data that you can now go out and pitch other people on how you can help them grow their retirement or grow their investments through private money lending. And in this case, when we use other people money, we get paid off for arbitrage, of which the spread is, right? But finding money from other people is not that hard. It's just the way you ask, right? If you're asking for cash, it may be a little challenging depending on where you are, your demographics, and who's in that circle. But begin by asking family and friends. You'd be really surprised. When we first started, I was they don't have big money. But they did. They did. I was really shocked. And if they didn't have the cash. But a lot of people have money sitting idle in their retirement account. And they're losing on that money. They're not making as much as they can. So finding other people money, start with your tier 1. Tier 1 is friends and family, neighbors, people you know. Start there. And once you do that, you'll find that and if you do good business, you'll find that most people will give you more money. So this is why I said in the beginning in the story about the tortoise and the hare, being slow and steady at this, delivering a good product, delivering a good service, being a good steward of your capital and other people's capital is going to propel your business through the roof, guys. And I just can't express that enough. Transparency is the most important tool that you have when you're in this business. So how do we structure safe and profitable loans? Okay, this is more of maybe something that probably needs a little bit more in-depth training. And again, if that is you and you're really serious about this business, don't forget to check out our 45-minute webinar. But to structure safe deals begins at the underwriting stage. Having a good underwriting practice is the way to structure a safe deal. So meaning, if you're going to lend up to 65% LTV, stick to it. If the borrower has an exit strategy to refinance you out, but the credit score is 550, then that's not a good deal, right? So you have to understand what you're getting yourself into. When you ask questions on the application, when there are red flags, meaning once you begin to understand the construction process, or you begin to understand construction or rehab values, and someone is overestimating the job or underestimating the job, that also can be a red flag. But all in all, to structure a safe loan, you want to go at or below your LTV of 65%. You want to make sure that you have all the insurances in place. You want to make sure that the borrower checks out, that there's a level of understanding of how this process works, that they understand the rehab, the construction process, that they understand what's going on in their local market. What is their exit strategy? All those things are all come up in the front part during the underwriting process, right? And profitable loans, you can make a lot of spread here on points, also helping the borrower to stay in a safe position. The 65%, y'all, that is actually the key to a profitable loan. If you're at the 65% or you're below that 65% LTV and you have that 35, that 40% protective equity spread there, then there's a lot of room for you to retrieve your principal back and to make some extra cash. Another thing too is location. Consider the location of this property. Is it in an appreciating location, or is it in an area it's questionable? You know, I personally have certain areas of New Orleans that I just don't like to lend. I don't care what the numbers state. These are just certain things that I'm just not comfortable with, or my risk tolerance is very low in certain areas. I would say my risk is high. It's a high, not low. It's like I have a high risk tolerance. I'm not saying that right or wrong. I don't. Just put it like this. They got certain areas in New Orleans that I just don't like. And I'm not going to be politically correct. They've got certain areas, certain neighborhoods I just don't like. Elridge, on the other hand, he's different. He doesn't care. Like I don't want to say don't fit. You care? Yeah, he care. But he does his evaluation strictly by the numbers. There's a few things that I take in consideration as well before I definitely say yay or nay to the loan. Another thing too about structuring safe and profitable loans is we're asset-based lenders. So we don't heavily weigh everything on the actual borrower. We just want to know that the borrower has a basic wherewithal, a basic understanding of what he or she is doing, a basic understanding of the numbers, a basic understanding of what's going on in the market, a knowledge of having more than one exit strategy are some key things. Well, this kind of concludes the end of this video. And I think I said a lot here. So step 2 is recurring, right? What versus step 1 is your foundation. And I think if you can understand setting your foundation first, all this other stuff is just recurring. here on one more thing I want to say, structure and say, this is all inside of your paperwork too. Your promissory notes, your documents. This is why with a team, having a team up front is very, very important. If you like any of the things that I said, or if you have some things that you want to add to it, go ahead and drop your comment below in the box. And I look forward to discussing anything. And feel free to at me or whatever. You can look me up on social media. I believe my Instagram is Anitra Preston, at Anitra Preston, or you can also visit us, Vertical Capital, on Instagram.